So we have next to Paulo first is Benjamin Coates. He's the head of Sustainable Initiative Office of in the Earth Observation Directorate of European Space Agency, and he'll be giving us an overview of ESA's fantastic work, but as well as the tremendous data resource that ESA's work has produced and how that really translates to the data transformation as well as the digital transformation using Earth observation technologies. And next to Benjamin, we have Mr. Rokis Komarudin. He's a senior researcher from Opera Brin, Indonesia. And correct me if my Googling skill is wrong, but this Opera Brin is the National Research and Innovation Agency and research organization on aeronautics and space. And his research focus has been in remote sensing technology and geomatics, especially in the fields of environment and disaster management. It's also very, very relevant area that ADB focuses on. Next, we have all the way from Armenia, we have Mr. Suren Tomasian. He is a chairman of Cadastre Committee of Government of Armenia. Again, talking about Armenia's effort in building the national spatial infrastructure. And we have our very own Maria Pia Ancora, Senior Urban Development Specialist, specializes in sustainable urban infrastructure investment, and also focused on her career in ADB in offering environmental policy advisory across Asia, and we'll be talking about ADB's own use and mainstreaming efforts and use of digital technologies. Last but not the least, someone from the Philippines, and this is probably, ADB and this event is probably so unique in being able to bring in people from 3 different space agencies in one panel. We have the Director General of Philippine Space Agency, Dr. Joel Joseph Marciano. He's the first and the current Director General of the Philippine Space Agency, or PhilSA, and also full-time professor at UP Diliman's in electrical electronics engineering, and advises the president on space matters. So with that short introduction, let's get started with the presentations.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I hope we can catch your attention with what space can bring to you and to your operations and to your countries. I titled this presentation Global Observations for National Applications because space really has this bird's eye view to bring observations from the whole world to actually, the people who make decisions, and that is normally the national ministries and decision makers in each of the countries. So how to bring that global picture into national applications, I would like to give you some ideas, and that actually is very much linked to the digital agenda which we are discussing here, because by taking these images, we're actually digitalizing the world, and that is one of the major inputs into the digital transformation. So I hope this works, this digital system. No, it doesn't. So we have one vision which I can show you when we go back to the second slide. In Earth observation at ESA, we call it taking the pulse of the planet, and that is really about making sure that we bring all these different observations from satellites, and they are not just these normal images you see in Google Earth Engine, but you actually also get information about the temperature, you get information about the geoid, which is actually built into your mobile phones, you get information about air pollution, the emissions, which are driving our climate change. So all this information can also be observed over long time series, and that brings it then also to very much relevant data sets for the climate change aspects and discussions we have today, and ADB just is trying to move into the being a climate bank, and that is, I think, also very important to consider if you're using these Earth observation data. One of the major data sources we have here, we can bring to the table for this discussion, is the Copernicus program that is funded by the European Union, and ESA is putting this into place. It's a whole fleet of different satellites we call Sentinels. You see Sentinel 1 to 6 here, and they are all open and free for your use, bringing a number of different observations, from optical to radar to atmospheric observations, all operationally available and for long-term observations as well. So these are funded up to 2030, and we have already the right funding for going beyond that, and actually we're also expanding the observation capabilities for 6 new types of Sentinels, and we can talk about that in the discussion. So all that what I just said is at 10-meter resolution, 5 days revisit available, and as I said, open and free for everybody. It's making it global public good. So here you see one of the applications you can do out of that. We used Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 here at 10-meter resolution to create a global land cover map, building on artificial intelligence or machine learning, as we heard this morning. That was one of the applications which our keynote speaker in the opening were referring to. And that, if you do that really at scale, you get a global picture, but you also can bring this down to national scale. And since we're here in the Philippines, I took a zoom into the Philippine coverage, but I mean, that is a global product, so we would like to also make sure that this is adapted to national use, and for that we work together with the Filza and DOST here, and I will come back to that. To make that a real national asset, we really need to obviously adapt it to the national users. So another example is about forest monitoring, here using Sentinel-1 at the 5-day, or 6 days, sorry, in this case, 6-day revisit, and you see basically how over the weeks, along different roads, the forest has been exploited, and that is something which is giving you situational awareness that was mentioned in the Digital Advisory Board yesterday as one of the more important aspects to be looked at. That situation awareness in the context perhaps of illegal logging, perhaps for understanding better your monitoring, your resources of forest assets, but also perhaps for bringing that into the sustainable value chains all the way up to your export markets, which becomes more and more a policy issue. Another example is agriculture that has been highlighted this morning. Agriculture for food security in one way, that is one of the first examples we used in the Mekong River Basin, where the most intensive rice production takes place in the world. And that was actually during the last El Nino event, and there was saltwater intrusion coming in and actually reducing the productivity by about 20% in the Mekong Delta. But that is only one part of it. You can bring this easily to national scale, and we even brought it to the regional scale in this case. But it's not only about monitoring the agriculture productivity, it's also about climate mitigation, and with that also contributing to the green transition, because rice actually is one of the biggest methane emitters. 8% of the emissions from human-induced methane emissions are coming from the rice production. And if you manage actually the rice production in the right way, you can, by alternate wet and drying practices, you can reduce the emission quite significantly. And that would be helping our society to move into a more green and lower carbon footprint society. So if I take all these And I want to make that link to the development cooperation context, which we are here with the Asian Development Bank. We have a long-standing cooperation, actually, since more than 10 years with the bank. And one of the examples, which I also mentioned yesterday to the advisory board, was that we had in Cambodia supported a project investment from ADB, and Paulo was very much involved in that, is about building river embankment in the Mekong Delta. And we used here Earth observation information to inform the project where to build this river embankment based on historic flood mapping, but also where the housing were and so on. And with that, there was a reduction about 25% of the investment. So we reduced the river embankment by 4 kilometers, and that resulted into this reduction about in saving $5 million. That is where we hope we can use, it's just one very small example where we can use Earth observation in the development cooperation investments. And we do that not only in one project, we do that in the Global Development Assistance Program. Here you see the different sectors we are covering. You see it's not only flooding, it's also health, for example, we are just starting, and so on. I mean, it's really a large part, and it's really integrated with the Asian Development Bank and also the World Bank to make sure that this is integrated into the development cooperation investments. That's showing it's a wide use of this information, and bringing that then also down back to the national level. We show here that in the Philippines, how much data is actually there. Since 2014, going back, there is archives being collected, and the data, what we want to make sure that there is a good ownership, and for that we're building together with the European Union, DG INPA, and the EU delegation here, a Copernicus data center. So with Joel, which I'm sure he will talk about that as well, we will try to build this kind of capability in the country, and then also build on top of that part of what we call the COPFIL initiative, 3 services, Earth observation services, very similar like in the examples I showed a second ago, co-developed that together with the ministries involved, and we will spend the rest of the week discussing with them how that should be done, and really transferring this capability to the national level, making sure that what I said in the very beginning, the global observations become an asset and information source for the different, let's say, management decisions in the country of the Philippines, and that makes it a national, hopefully, good infrastructure, and that is contributing to your discussions, Paulo. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to say thank you to ADB to invite me to join in this panelist. What I would like to discuss here is related our current status of Earth observation system in Indonesia, and also what kind of ADB and also ESA support for our countries.
Actually, thanks for the delay. We just realized that we keep forgetting about the people connected online. Just came the Zoom stuff, and this is the opportunity. This is giving me the opportunity also
okay.
to mention that during question time, people connected from abroad, resident mission, they should really stop us and for questions. The floor is yours now.
Okay, thank you, Paulo. Yeah, what I want to discuss today is what is our current status of Earth observation development, and also the ADB and also support for Indonesia. And in 2021, we have a big transformation for Research and Innovation Institute in Indonesia. And we are all in Indonesia for the Research Institute merged in one institution. We call it National Research and Innovation Agency. Yeah, including our space agency. Yeah, formally we have a space agency, National Institute of Aeronautics and Space, LAPAN, and formally I work at this institution. Now we are working together with all research institutions in Indonesia to join in the National Research and Innovation Agency in 2021. But we still commit on the development of Earth observation system. And currently we already have 3 satellites in orbit. We call it LAPAN-A1, LAPAN-A2, LAPAN-A3. And the next year we will launch LAPAN-A4. There is a lot of sensor that bring in that satellite, and yeah, this is LAPAN-A1 is already going down, and LAPAN-A2 and LAPAN-A3 is still operational, and we have a multi-spectral imagery, but only 4 band. And the next year we will try to launch LAPAN-A4 and also bring multispectral imagery and also one sensor of automatically identification system. And besides we operate the satellite, we also receive receive of data from our ground station. We receive several imagery, including very high resolution spatial imagery. For example, we receive Pleiades data. We also receive Spot 6 and Spot 7 data. We receive also the Landsat and also what is kind of low and medium resolution data. And this data we apply for several applications in Indonesia, and we divide into 3 categories. First is we apply to the natural resources, and also for the environment and disaster, and other part is for the other strategies. For example, we have a collaboration with national drug body. We monitor the cannabis, what is cannabis planting. And for sustainable development goal, we try to support on that program. And remote sensing can support at least 9 goals for our activities. And we, for example, we support SDGs number 1, SDGs number 2, and also SDGs number 6, SDGs number 11, and also number 13, number 14, also 15. And then we also develop a specific platform for Earth observation system. The next days, we have a plan to develop Nusantara constellation satellite. It is under planning, and we have a plan to build 4 high-res and 4 very high imaging satellite, and also 2 synthetic aperture radar satellite, and also 10 communication satellite in LEO orbit, and 1 satellite communication for geo orbit. And currently we still under development, and we still under discussion on the build of the satellite. And 2 very high satellite is the first to be built in the partner country, and the second to be built in Indonesia. We also have a public-private partnership, and also we try to develop 2 SAR satellite in near equatorial orbit. It is under discussion with ADB also for foreign launch, and we will have 10 IoT satellite for equatorial orbit. And we try also develop a platform that is automatically platform. It's mean from the data, if the data come to our storage, and the system will process automatically, and automatically also process as what is give information to the website, and also people can give feedback to the information that we already developed. And yeah, our platform also will we will connect to other ministries, and also we will try to connect to other local government. It's mean digitally connected. It's mean yeah, it is a specific user. For example, we have to support the National Disaster Management Agency. We have to support the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. We support of Ministry of Fisheries, something like that. And also, what important thing for the Earth observation is support the local government, because they sometimes they don't have how to monitor their area. What is changes? What is condition of the environment? This is our work with ADB and also at ESA. Thank you for ADB and ESA. They give us some platform, and they can work with this platform to process remote sensing data. And we have several also training conducted in Indonesia, and we to increase our capacity to process remote sensing data. Every yeah, we will have a project in the north coast of Java, and we yeah, similar thing. We will try to develop a platform to monitor what is condition of the north coast of Java. This is one example of our result of our analysis, and this is also yeah, we try also to develop the what kind of building stability using remote sensing data. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Suren Tovmasyan, and I'm head of Cadastre Committee of Republic of Armenia. And it's for me it's difficult to say words about national data infrastructure, because my colleagues explaining the importance of this infrastructure. And right now I will try to say some words about this and about our practice in creating national data infrastructure and managing this type of information in Armenia. First of all, several words about my organization. We are responsible for registering and protecting for all of Armenia, and we have goals, several goals, maintaining the single state cadastre of immovable property, and operating of one platform for all of Armenia, and recognizing and protecting by the state of the rights on property, and implementation of integrated cadastre strategy. And for this we have several objectives also: assisting in the development of the real estate market, creating information system on property rights, restriction on property, geodesy and cartography, etc. Developing land policy, land recovery management principles within the scope of its competence, and also providing the large data set for government for decision making. about Armenian data infrastructure, I can say that my government start to collect information, start create cadastral map since 2000, and in that time we collected a lot of information, terabytes of information. But in this world, when we are trying to make some analytics and trying to collect in one platform several type of data sets, we are having a problem because the data sets are created in several time, in several coordinate system. They have no any points that we can use to bring them in one area. And the reason was that we start to make some homework and start to collect all this data in one area and prepare for them some standards. And basically, we are cadastre committee responsible for several basic layers, cartographic basic layers, and there is also thematic layers. For thematic layers, we have another governmental bodies. They are responsible and they are trying to make some homework and create standards for them. And for basic layers, in 2022, we created and adopted by decision of government standards and rules how to create new standards for thematic and base layers. And here on this slide, you can see the main basic layers which are keeping it in our we are keeping that in our servers, and we are providers and the base place where the people can get correct information from government. And basic layers are administrative boundaries, immovable property, rights, addresses, relief, surface waters, transport network, orthophoto imagery, and mosaic elevation elements for all of Armenia. And there is a lot of thematic layers. In this moment, we are adopted by decision of government for 14 thematic layers, standards for 14 thematic layers. For bringing this all cartographic information in one area, we needed some software solutions, and by our specialists was created new software for providing geoportal service for all of Armenia. And right now in this geoportal, we collected all our base layers, and all of our cadastral maps, they are live. And when we are doing some register for land property, in that moment, the changes are shown, will be shown on this geoportal. We opened the internet connection for all government bodies and for our partners, and they can via internet receive all this data and make their own analysis and add their own layers on it. And after when this job were done, we tried to it's correct. And we tried to draw the structure, main structure of an SDI platform in Armenia. And we decided that several users have to have several roles, and we divided it for 3 parts. First part is that organizations who will responsible for base layers and thematic layers. Second part, who will receive this information by via internet for municipalities and for other governmental organizations. And third part is users from business and citizens in Armenia. And the design was done, and was done by help of our colleagues from Korean Alex company. And for this, okay. And for this, if I don't mistake, in 2020, I have met Maria Pia in one meeting in Armenia, and we discussed the possibility to make a project with Cadastre Committee and with ADB. And these projects we start to do, and we receive some amount of money from ADB. And starting from 2021, we start prepare land for developing NSDI in Armenia. And first of all, we adopted, our government was adopt strategy of integrated cadastre. We call it integrated because we are trying to integrate all type of information in one area. And this is not only the paper which are our fundament. We also have another big point in program of our government, Armenian government program for 21-26. We have a separate part, and we call it National Data Infrastructure again, and financing coming also from our state budget. And after adopting a strategy of integrated cadastre, we started to prepare some standards for base and thematic layers, and these standards was adopted in 2022. And after we prepared two main laws, and it was adopted. This laws was adopted in 2023. Law of geodating and cartographic activities and law of spatial data. And I will show you also the some working photos with ADB colleagues and how we start to prepare this project, who will visit us, and how project was gone in Armenia. And after first part was about creation new standards for Armenia. Korean company, Alex company, helped us to create several standards, which you can see, and the standards you can see on the slide in this moment. And the second part of ADB project is to create new platform for connecting all data sets and viewing these data sets for economy of Armenia. And the second part is for GeoPortal. And was prepared TOR for GeoPortal, and was done the structure, main structure of GeoPortal. And right now we are on the way to start programming works during this project. This is all. Thank you very much for time.
Thank you. Good afternoon from my side. Thank you, Chairman Tomasian. I'll take the chance while waiting for the slides to come up to thank really our colleagues in the Digital Technologies for Solutions group. Thomas Abel and his team have provided tremendous support to our sector teams. I understand throughout Asia, but I particularly benefited in the work that I do in the South Caucasus, where I've been based since 2019. So with this presentation, I wanted to discuss the potential of national spatial data infrastructure, NSDI, from the perspective of urban development, from the urban sector perspective, drawing on the experience with our technical assistance grant, which we provided to the State Cadastre Committee represented by Chairman Tomasian. And I don't think I need to delve too much into definitions. We heard some definitions this morning, and I guess we have 3 days for all of this. But I thought it was worthwhile to focus on the definition of integrated geospatial information. This process, this integrated qualification refers to the process of combining and analyzing multiple geospatial data sets from different sources, such as satellite imagery, remote sensing, photographies, crowdsourcing data, high-frequency location-based data. But what I've seen in our developing member countries, our DMCs, is that often this information is scattered across data sets which don't speak to each other. And so the key word is really the interoperability of these data sets and the ability to merge various sets of data into like a comprehensive system, into a system of information that can be compared with each other, that can be reconciled with each other. And it's really the lack of these integration and the fragmentation that we've observed that is a deterrent for effective land use planning, effective use of scarce land resources. Well, this is exactly what we're experiencing now in Georgia, where the country has borrowed from EDB to develop its first master plan, national spatial development plan. And we expect, difficult analysis phase and diagnostic phase because all the data sets, think about the water resources data set, think about the transport network, think about climate vulnerability hotspots, flood management strategies. They're all scattered across different data sets. And it's only the integration of the comprehensive integration of real-time data, extensive amount of real-time data that can enable effective policy making. But the same policy making applies, for example, to the use of policies for land value capture, which is very important for cities, as we know in the urban sectors, because through better land value capture and through better digitized and effective real estate management systems, cities can collect more revenues from tax properties. That means more revenues for them. They usually rely on central budget transfer, right? But think about also disaster management. What if you had the vulnerability maps readily available and integrated with your water utilities maps and with your transport network maps, and you could plan ahead to prevent disasters. You could plan flood management. You could plan landslide risk prevention, and that's what we're trying to do in Georgia, by the way. And in fact, the bottom left picture refers to a project that was developed with in-kind support from the European Space Agency in Armenia, and those are the landslide vulnerability maps, which we hope to put into use very soon with an upcoming urban development law. But think about also from our urban sector perspective, think about project implementation. I guess everyone who's worked in urban knows how complicated are our projects implementation in terms of actual delays due to not ideal, not optimized alignment of the infrastructure. For example, when we speak about urban roads, think about all the resettlement issues that we had to go through. But think about how many times we've gone, contracts have gone delayed because we found some utilities underground, utilities that were not mapped. So these are some of the benefits that I've seen, that I see as potentially upgrading really our design, our urban planning efforts, and our urban project design. But there are other benefits, including on public participation to land use planning. When the information is, when land use plans where zoning plans and other spatial documents are available to the public, accessible to everyone and transparent, citizens can participate in that dialogue, can participate in the planning effort, and can hold administrators accountable for their vision. But they can also contribute to prevent corruption risks from undue and disposal of landslots, which often happens, especially in the countryside. As we said, we already talked about the efficiency in the real estate market. And in general, it really helps saving time and money from administrative procedures, which are currently very often actually still paper-based to secure land registrations or to secure real estate property titles. And we experienced that under COVID, where basically the whole real estate market was frozen because people could not access the land ownership certificates because the offices were closed, and therefore they couldn't apply for mortgages, and the whole economy suffered really. Now, Mr. Tomasian has already spoken about the TA in Armenia, which we which we approved in March 2021 for a total of 1.3 million. I'd like to thank the colleagues from the Korean Fund and colleagues from the High Level Technology Fund, the Japanese fund, who provided this grant. Now, this maybe it's relatively big for Armenia because Armenia qualifies in ADB as an upper middle income country, but it's relatively small for the task at hand. And here it's really where I should thank Thomas Abel and his group for bringing in extra resources, in-kind resources, including through the European Space Agency, to complete this very important task. We've gone through the first phase, which was about the design of the geoportal, of the integrated geoportal, which was about designing the national geoportal standards, 10 of them. And we're now in the phase of actually, we're ready for the actual establishment of the geoportal platform. Output 3 is about basically piloting the integration and the migration of thematic layers into the cadastre, a very important task as well. Midway through the implementation, we thought we could draw some lessons already, and a key lesson is about the importance of having a clear vision from the country itself, which is harmonized with the development of digital services to be provided by all public entities. Actually, this is a very crucial timing. As I understand, Armenia is thinking about digitizing the entire economy. But it was important for ADB to realize that there was a strong mandate on the State Cadastre Committee. I met Mr. Tomasian in 2020, and he really convinced us that he was committed to the agenda, the government of Armenia was committed, and that's why we engaged. Another lesson is that the subject is very technical, and it really requires specialized expertise. We are grateful to the Korean company. We are being extremely careful in choosing the next company which will assist in the development of the platform itself. That has been critical, I would say. And well, as in any development project, of course, one cannot apply like solutions which have been used elsewhere. I think for Armenia, we're looking at the example of the Estonian geoportal, but nevertheless, that geoportal will be fully customized to the Armenian experience and to the Armenian context. It's important that we as ADB fulfill our role of convener and facilitate an agreement and a dialogue among all stakeholders. We have Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Transport, who are now required by law to transfer their data sets into the geoportal, and we're doing our best to facilitate the dialogue. And finally, I think it's important to remember that this type of infrastructure is expensive, perhaps not as expensive as a highway or other wastewater treatment plant, but it's expensive and it needs constant upgrade because it goes very much with the technology and that evolves very fast. And it needs a lot of maintenance. So that's something that we should account for in designing our future projects. So the idea is really to continue possibly scaling up what we started in Armenia, support the development of the National Spatial Plan, including through facilitating an establishment of an integrated geospatial information system for Georgia, and encouraging our countries in Central West, that's the area, the geographic area of my competence, to consider these types of services as critical services for urban development and beyond. And I think this was all. Thank you.
Talk about the Philippine Space Agency. There it is. The title of my presentation is called Yamang Kalawakan. It's a Filipino term which we coined, roughly translating to space resources. It's a new term that we figuratively use to refer to the vast opportunities, value, and benefit that the Philippines can pursue and realize through space capabilities. So let's begin. Okay. Just a quick background on the Philippine Space Agency. We were established by virtue of a Republic Act 11363, or the Philippine Space Act, signed on August 8, 2019. We celebrated our 4th anniversary last month. Under the said law, PhilSA is placed under the office of the President. Common misconception in the country about it being somehow attached to the Ministry of Science and Technology. It's actually a different science agency under the office of the President for purposes of policy and program coordination to ensure alignment in national policies and priorities. So the agency is headed by the Director General, and there is a Philippine Space Council as well, which I will talk about in a moment. It was also created under the Act. By the way, the Act also established the Philippine Space Policy. And the law also gives the PhilSA the mandate as a central government agency in the Philippines addressing all national issues and activities related to space, science, and technology and its applications. And under that, there are 6 key development areas for SSTA, shown in the slide. That's national security and development, hazard management and climate studies, space R&D, space education and awareness, space industry capacity building, international cooperation. And as you can see, in the context of a country like the Philippines with an infant space agency and ecosystem, there's a lot of heavy lifting that's being done because in the absence of some parts of the ecosystem being there, so then you can see the wide gamut of activities of a space agency in the country. And I mentioned the Philippine Space Council. It is the principal advisory body for the coordination and integration of policies and programs affecting space science and technology and its applications. It's chaired by the President of the Republic. You can see other members there of that council are from the cabinet and members of Congress. Notably, the vice chairs of this council are from the Science and Technology Department and the National Defense Department. And the PhilSA Director General serves as the head secretariat of this council. And you can see also from the news clippings how the President is quite engaged in the National Space Program and capability development. He recently declared August 8th to 14th of each year as Philippine Space Week. Part of his message during the occasion reads as follows, and I quote, "At present, we are already utilizing space technology's wide array of advantages to enhance the delivery of public services through the use of transmitted data and images from the satellites managed by PhilSA. Looking forward, we are even more optimistic about the many benefits it can bring to our country." And so value creation is at the core of the PhilSA mission, and that is to promote and sustain a robust Philippine space ecosystem that adds and creates value in space for and from Filipinos and for the world. When we look at value creation as a mission, we look at value chains, and one instantiation of this is a space data value chain. We adapted this from an APEC Australian government report on the current and future value of Earth and marine observation in the Asia-Pacific region, consisting of components and their nexus, which when present and manifest and interacting will yield socioeconomic benefit in the end. The components are, well, upstream satellite infrastructure. The next one is the data and services that are derived from these satellites and how they should be suitably accessible. The third are ground infrastructure for hosting and downloading data and services. Fourth is the capacity to interrogate, analyze, and derive insights from such data and services. And the fifth is really the valley of death. It's the impetus and resources to act on such insights, intelligence, and information. And if that is done, perhaps we can realize socioeconomic benefit and value. And so we talk about the national space program in this context. In a country like the Philippines, we still ask questions about why it's relevant to have a space agency in the first place. And so when we try to project it in terms of these services and how value creation is made from such capabilities, and then we talk about each component. So first of all, component number one, very quickly, it's about satellites. And the Philippines, through the efforts of young Filipinos studying in Japanese universities who have come back, have built some satellites, microsatellites, CubeSats, etc. We're now moving on to the next generation of satellites, 130 kilogram multispectral unit for land assessment that has received a 3-year, multi-year funding from the Philippine government. And so when we, to be a space-faring and space-capable nation, as is embedded, as stipulated in the Philippine space policy, that really means some kind of sovereign capability in space. And also being space-capable entails industrial capabilities in space. So that is the goal, maybe perhaps not to build entire satellites, but components and subsystems of it, which can open new markets for local space-adjacent companies. And one thing we have done is really, when we look at satellites in exploded view, you might see some really technical stuff there, but what we see are opportunities to build for these space-adjacent companies to pursue a new and burgeoning market for space-qualified objects. Industry sectors that are space adjacent, like materials engineering, metal manufacturing, electronics and embedded systems, etc. Now, the second component is about the data. And in the top right diagram, we see how we try to curate various satellites to come up with some kind of a catalog of data that helps ensure accessible and suitable data for managing the spatial and temporal coverage that we need in the country. Of course, there are constraints on resources as far as this is concerned, because we don't, apart from relying on sovereign satellites like Diwata 2 and I guess part of Novasar we have access to, it's a SAR satellite. Apart from sovereign satellites, we also use open and commercial sources, and notably under open sources, we have the Copernicus Sentinel satellites, of course, shown in the diagram. The third component you see there is ground infrastructure. There's facilities in Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, ground stations that listen to the satellites, that command them. So there's a bit enough redundancy there, we believe, to really reliably operate the satellites and download the data and host the data. But there's also a need for computational muscle. When you're ingesting all of this data, you need high-performance computers. This is something that needs support in this country in terms of access to such high-performance computing and being able to distribute that over the archipelago. So that's work in progress. But for these ground stations, the challenge is really to maintain them and operate them reliably. Now, on to my colleague Benjamin here mentioned the National Copernicus Capacity Support Action Program for the Philippines. This is a collaboration between the European Commission, the EU delegation in the Philippines, and Senor Giovanni Zeritera here, thank you so much. And of course, Benjamin, representing ESA and the Department of Science and Technology in the Philippine Space Agency. This further strengthens the space data value chain in the country, especially the second and third components. In the words of Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, EC President and recent Manila visitor, we're currently setting up a so-called Copernicus Data Mirror site within the Philippine Space Agency, and we have just signed an agreement to boost the flow of Earth observation data between us. This is very important for early warning, for example, for extreme weather phenomenon, and to improve climate resilience. This is a first in space cooperation in Asia, unquote. Now, essentially, the Philippines will be hosting servers where Copernicus Sentinel data will be more accessible and distributed across the country. And you see on the top right some kind of scope of area of interest over the Southeast Asian region that could eventually be used to host data here locally. And under COPFIL, there are we're launching 3 pilot services, which will keep Benjamin busy this week. This is ground monitoring, motion monitoring, land cover and forest mapping services, and benthic habitat monitoring services. I should just note with land cover, the capability is there, but it's more than that. It's really about being able to produce this with more frequency. Going from maybe every 5 years to yearly or even quarterly, and for ground motion monitoring, being able to have this kind of capability on demand. So that's the challenge. On the capacity to analyze and generate insights, substantial demonstration of capacity here from generating insights from spaceborne data. 2023 alone, about 7,700 maps were produced by the Space Agency and its partners, distributed to different government agencies. 776 individuals benefiting from 11 capacity building engagements, totaling about 117,000 total person hours of training so far. And that's important because the goal is to be able to embed such capability within government agencies. If you look at the value chain, ultimately somebody else has to make a decision on how and when to use the data and the insights, and it's not the space agency that's going to bridge that final gap. It has to be the agriculture department or the environment department or the Coast Guard, or etc. And so this is, we also signed, with regard to the impetus and resources to act, partnerships are important. And the Space Agency recently partnered with, signed 6 agreements, the Department of Budget and Management for monitoring big ticket projects of government, infrastructure, airports, roads, things that can be seen from space, the National Greening Program with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Mindanao, the island Mindanao with socioeconomic development, Land Bank of the Philippines for analytics for agri-financing, and protection and management of marine biodiversity with the Fisheries Bureau, and of course the COPFIL with the European Commission. And some other agreements are going to be happening soon with the Department of Transportation, Agriculture, and the Coast Guard. And so finally, I guess, what's ultimately our goal is to derive socioeconomic value and benefit. And if information from space is acted on. One example of this is shown with credit going to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and law enforcement agencies who are acting on ground intelligence and aided by satellite imagery to shut down an illegal mining operation in the south of the country. So it is our goal to share more developments like this as we continue to grow the local space ecosystem. So I believe this is a good way to end the introduction. No? So thank you very much. I think that's my last slide.
Thank you very much. Please, let's.
Immense thanks to you and the team for supporting our dialogue with the governments. I think from my experience, what it really takes is leadership and ownership from the country itself. As I said, the reason why we started this project in Armenia, which was really the first formalized project, was because we had confidence in the leadership of Chairman Tomasian, in the support that he had, from a broad spectrum of the government in this. But I remember actually starting the whole research and the whole brainstorming about spatial data in Armenia with you and the Central Bank of Armenia, which actually was is represented informally by the former governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Giritsin. When we partnered with the Central Bank to basically try to have evidence for the government to invest in urban development and in urban infrastructure in secondary cities. If you remember that time, we got support from the European Space Agency. I think you were already there to carry out this study, which would help us raise awareness within the government with evidence and clearly also visible on why it's important to invest in secondary cities. And that was a great example of how I think ADB raised awareness on the potential of these kind of technologies and the digitization agenda in Armenia. But from their side, there was also leadership, ownership, and a willingness to move forward. So I think that's what I'm hoping to replicate in Georgia, where we are working with the newly created Spatial and Urban Development Agency, and raising their awareness and the awareness of the government of Georgia to step up their digitization agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is actually makes my life easier for the next question to you, Suren. A little bit of an anecdote. When we all started to work with in Armenia, we got the initial requirements, and my reply was, "Oh, this one is a digital cadastre," meaning that in a way of thinking of ADB is only resource mobilization, just governance. Then we got a nice presentation from your team, and you came up with all the different layers, and we said, "Well, it's actually more than that. I mean, this one is actually a real, national spatial data infrastructure." Having said that, a question for you, Suren. There was also mentioned this morning about something about standards. You show us the architecture, of your the national job portal is coming out. It should be said again that several ministries will be connected and providing data. If I remember correctly, we have a domain for transport, and the law says for everybody, right? Okay, even better. How important are the standards in this? I know you adopted the Inspire stance, so maybe you can say something about the standards.
Thank you for the question. I will say several things and facts, and we will decide together the importance of standards. First of all, I want to mention that when I start to work in this position, I said that we need some analysis. We need to do some analysis job for understanding what type of mistakes we have in our databases. Because when you are trying to put some digital tools for citizens, for economy, for the country, you have to provide qualified information to them. And for this, you have to be sure that your data sets is good enough for providing in electronic version, and not put some specialist to check again and again and again. And I found mistakes, and I can say, let's say, I found mistakes in address data sets around 300,000. After we found the mistakes for land cover and land resources information, almost about 150,000 mistakes. And how we can find this? When we are trying to collect in one area, put layer on layer, and check by some electronic tools, and say, okay, it's not good quality information to provide in electronic version. And why is it like that? Because governments spend money, collect information about addresses, collect information about land property, collect information about owners. We found mistakes, almost 2 million in list of owners. 2 million mistakes. You know what is it? It means we can't provide any information in electronic version in that time, in 2020. But, we found that all these mistakes coming from that point that we start collect information without standards, We collect information from everywhere, we collect information every time and keep in our servers. But how we collect and what type of servers we are using, how we are keeping this information in our servers, all these problems coming from that we haven't standard on this area. And when we put the standards in 2022, we bring all this information together. We take a big team, and during 1 year, we did our homework and bringing all these 9 layers in one standard, in one area, in one coordinate system, and providing all this information to our government. And right now, all governments, it's put it on law who can reach this information for free. And who has these points and who can reach for free, we provided all this type of information. Right now they are opening in electronic version, all this information can download something. And there is also some developed organization, and they are using some cartographic system, and we are providing electronic services for them, and they opening the
let's say, cadastral map, orthophoto imagery, and starting to develop their own thematic layers. And it's important to mention that it's not, the job is not finished in this moment. Why? Because we we provide only standards for base layers, and it's very important to keep go and prepare standards also for important thematic layers. We did it, but it's good enough? No one can say, because we need some specialists to invite to provide the revision of it and to put in good level, in good condition. That's it. Thank you for the
Thanks,
question.
very helpful. I want to go now to the space group. I would like to still start with Benjamin. Benjamin, you mentioned that, well, we were together at yesterday at advisory group for the president, and you and other members got the question, digital divide. And I'm sure that the digital divide can affect our digital Earth observation work in many ways. I think you have an opinion about open source or some kind of solutions. Am I right?
Well, yes, I did raise it at the Digital Advisory Board that we do have, and I cannot agree more with my previous speakers, that we do need to create ownership about what the digital tools and skills in the countries are making a difference. And that has to start with owning not only just the product or perhaps the data, you need to have the full value chain as the ownership. And that is something where open source comes into play. I mean, that you can, as also something which the Asian Development Bank can champion and lead, to have a kind of a repository of open source tools which they can bring then to the different development member countries. But most importantly, that information retrieval and skills which you will need to maintain this kind of services. I mean, we're talking about 3 Earth observation services here being developed in the Philippines. These should be co-designed and co-developed, but as open source, so there is not a problem to do that together, and then afterwards there is a discussion who's owning then what the intellectual property. It is the person who wants to run the service, and with that you have a full end-to-end ownership. So that is what I think is important about open source. And on top of that, I mean, you would need also a good value proposition. You would have also a good awareness and capacity in the different institutions who own it. But if you don't have this open access or open source approach, you will lose more early or later this ownership. And I would be, as a space agency, very unhappy that this capability is not then in the right hands.
Good, thanks. Question for Joel. Joel, I have to make a confession, from the ADB point of view. Every time we do a digital project, we're always concerned about the assessment of capacity. We're always scared that, what we do in the country cannot be taken forward. When I look at the Philippines, every year you guys really grow in numbers, capacity. Why is that? I mean, right now you were able to co-design the COP field. Is there an ecosystem in the Philippines that you learn more about capabilities?
Thanks, Paulo. First of all, I think it's really driven by need. In the country where we are geographically, and the things that we encounter, the challenges and the opportunities alongside it, the environmental challenges and the typhoons, etc., motivate us to really look for additional tools. And the vantage point of space, well, first of all, you talk about the digital divide as well, and the islands spread apart. Unless we invest on a cable laying ship in the country that could start laying down submarine cable and connecting every single island, you can look to space with satellites that bridge these islands. So, the concept of a space agency perhaps being far and distant in the minds of everyday Filipinos, I think we're trying to, first of all, the first order of business is try to dispel that and see it's actually quite close to our daily life. You open your mobile phone, you navigate from point A to point B, you use at least 4 different space technologies as you do that on a daily basis. So then it's that appreciation capacity before absorptive capacity. Perhaps as you try to build this capacity to absorb and start utilizing the data, first of all, there needs to be proper appreciation. So that's been, I think, a battle that the PhilSA did not start. It started with many groups in the Philippines in the past, battling typhoons and all sorts of disasters and agricultural food security issues. We start to look to space. And again, what we try to, I guess, emphasize is this focus on the value chain and how ultimately, you try to build strength in each component and, equitably. But then at the end of the day, somebody has to act on that. And then you will try to stay with them to get feedback, because that's important. Try to then flow that feedback back into further investments in areas in that value chain which need strength, and you leverage international cooperation as well for that, where there you might be weak or where there is some strength. So it's that framework, perhaps, that it's now maturing and trying to get everybody in line. But there's still many challenges.
Congratulations, great work. I had time for the last question, and I left Indonesia to last. Having said that, also we started as a DB to work with Indonesia since 2017. It was our country #1. There is a reason for that. Rokis, in your slides you mentioned two things very important to people in ADB. One is actually a loan, which I feel guilty that like today our Indonesian team is processing the loan, negotiating the FAT component. But you can say something more about that. And also you said something about loan space segment. This is satellites. This is a new discussion that you see unfolding in Indonesia.
Yeah, I think it's under discussion. Last week, the country director of ADB visited our chairman, Green Chairman, and we're willing to develop a satellite, and we call it Nusantara Satellite Constellation, and I think we need more budget for that, but still under discussion. Is it worth it of because our analysis of the cost and benefit for using satellite in Indonesia is very promising, because the Indonesia is very large country, so satellite property is necessary for us to monitor our land and to monitor our country. I think there are many activity that need remote sensing data or satellite imagery data. And also I comment to the standard also that if we don't have standard of the data, so maybe the data will be chaotic. So since 2019 we have one map policy. So every map that produced by government institutions should be in one standard, should be in one reference, and should be in one methodology. So the remote sensing can support this one map policy. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm very conscious of time, so please join me in a round of applause, and sorry for eroding some breaking time of yours. Thank you.